crested geckos are one of, if not the easiest reptile that you could possibly own. Now in today's video, we're going to be talking about their size, their tank size, substrate, their diet, heat, humidity, lighting, and their behavior. I think these guys are perfect for kids. So if you're looking for a pet or a reptile for your kids, crested geckos are the perfect way to go. In today's video, we're going to dive into everything. They're also a simple pet. They're awesome. I highly recommend them. I'm gonna have Chips with me for this video, guys. Chips, as you guys know, I show her off all the time, especially on shorts. She's such a pretty ink spot. You can see that big spot right there. She's got tons of spots all over her body. She's gorgeous. I cannot wait for her to get ready to breed because her babies are gonna be crazy. Now, real quick, I did wanna just tell you guys this is gonna be a longer video, but this care guide is gonna be so thorough. I'm telling you, it's gonna be worth it. So make sure you watch the whole thing because there's gonna be little tips and tricks all throughout the video. So all these little tips and tricks are gonna be in there, little nuggets of information that you're gonna wanna know. I am a breeder, so make sure you watch the whole video. I hope that it's gonna help you guys. I'm thinking that it will. Let me know in the comments if it does, but let's get into the video. So the first thing we're going to talk about is their adult size. So full-grown crested geckos get to be between 6 and 10 inches. Now, 6 inches would be for a crested gecko that dropped its tail and no longer has its tail, and 10 inches would be more like one that has an actual tail still. So, well, before you guys ask, no, they cannot grow their tail once they lose it. Yes, they will lose it for literally any random reason. So, I mean, don't bank on your crested gecko always having a tail because it won't. And honestly, it's kind of cute when they lose it. It doesn't really affect the health of the actual gecko. The cool/cute thing that kind of goes on when your crested gecko loses its tail is that it becomes a frog butt. Now, if you don't know what a frog butt is, it's this. It's how their butt, when their butt looks like a frog because they no longer have a tail. So that is what we call a frog butt. And Chips here is a frog butt. That's the only, I guess, negative thing. There's no health issues or anything like that for them losing their tail, so don't worry about that. So basically, just depending on if they have their tail or if not is gonna be the main deciding factor in if they're gonna be 6 inches or 10 inches. But I mean, the 10 inches would only be, you know, that tail that they're gonna have. So it's not really that big of a gecko, pretty small. Next, we're going to get into the tank size that you need to put them in. So since I'm a breeder, I use a different tank setup than some of you might. Now, some of you might use the same thing because what I use and what I do is relatively easy, but some of you might say, I want something that looks a little bit nicer, and that's okay too. So basically, when they're little, I put them in 6-quart totes. So like when they're a hatchling, up to about 10 grams, they're in 6-quart totes. From, I would say around the 10 to 20 gram mark, they're in 17-quart totes. And then I would put adults or sub-adults, you know, growing up adults, anything 20-ish grams and larger can go into a 66-quart tote. Crested geckos are an arboreal lizard, meaning they like to be climbing and they like to be up in the trees and on branches. So when you have a tank, if you end up using, sometimes people will use for one full adult crested gecko, 20-gallon long tank vertically. You don't do it horizontally because they need that climbing room, so you want it vertically. Basically, you use a 20-gallon tank. You can get a little like adapter. It's like a little plastic piece that you either caulk or glue in, and then it's got like a little door you can open and, you know, you can use that. What I recommend, if you're not gonna use the totes, is an 18 by 18 by 24 tank. Now, those are perfect for one, or if you're going to be breeding and you put a male and female in there together for a little bit, that is fine. If you're going to do a group of geckos, I would go a little bit bigger, honestly. I'm not a big fan of putting multiple females with one male in the same tank. I think that's just unwanted stress, and that's not really what I do. I would say one gecko per 18 by 18 by 24 tank. Here's my quick little side note. Never house 2 male crested geckos together. They will fight until they both die, more than likely. Don't ever put them together. They're literally just gonna fight. And like I said, I don't even recommend putting females together, even though technically you can. These guys are solitary animals, so I mean, they like to be alone. So technically, yes, you probably could put some females together as long as they're the same exact size, they have the same amount of access to food, and they're all maintaining a healthy weight and not fighting. Yeah, you probably could, but they're solitary animals, so I mean that you're just putting unwanted stress on your animal, which means they could be more likely to get sick. So I just avoid this, and I do not put any of my crested geckos together other than for breeding. But that's a different video, and if you want to learn how to breed, I've got a video down in the description if you want to learn how to breed crested geckos, but that's a different video, and that's not today. So yeah, never ever put crested geckos together. Honestly, that's my advice. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm sure you'll hear other things, but that's my opinion. That's what I do, and it seems to work fine. So now, as far as decorations go, cork rounds or tubes work amazing. PVC pipes with little holes drilled in them, and then suction cups work great for homemade branches too. And then you want a lot of leaf cover. They want to be hidden. They want to feel like they're in a jungle. You basically want to pack it with branches and leaves and plants, basically, so they can feel hidden and they can hide in the plants. Now, if you're like me and you're a breeder, or let's say you like the idea of keeping them in a tote, versus a Exoterra tank, or it's cheaper and you can own more of them that way, and that's how you choose, to each their own. A way to get around the fact that most totes are longer versus taller, like I was saying, they're more horizontal than vertical, is creating a lot of climbing areas in the tank for your crested gecko. Now, the way the thinking or the theory behind this, and this is what I've gotten from other breeders on YouTube, that's basically just creating a lot of places to where they have to use their muscles to climb all around their tank, up, down, I mean everywhere. You want to create a lot of things in there for them to crawl, to force them to use their muscles, since they might not necessarily be climbing as high as you want them to. Another little tip or trick is when you're feeding them, feed them in different spots. Therefore, when they're hunting for their food, they've got to move all around their tank, climb up and down things around, and then, you know, you're kind of forcing them to use their muscles to be on the lookout for food. So that's another little trick that you could do. Now, another thing about tank decorations is some people say your crested geckos don't need water bowls. Now, that might be true, but I'm going to tell you guys why I disagree with it. Now, I put a Gatorade cap or a water bottle cap for water in every single one of my crested gecko tanks. Now, a lot of people say you don't need one. Now, yeah, you don't necessarily need one, because it is true, most of the time crested geckos will be licking either water off of their face, like you just saw her lick, or they're going to be licking water off of the leaves, which is mostly where they get their water. But on occasions, I have seen multiple crested geckos, babies, juveniles, and adults, all drink from the water bowl, even when their tank was sprayed. So I know that they still drink out of it, so why not give it to them? I mean, the only thing that would happen is you're benefiting your gecko. You're not going to hurt them by including a small water dish in their tank, and everybody's got a water bottle cap, everybody's got a Gatorade cap. Super easy. You might as well just do it. It's not going to hurt them. Now, next we're going to talk about substrate. And substrate, you're going to need a lot of humidity in your tank, so that's kind of going to depend on what substrate you use. You can really help keep the humidity high in your tank. So we're going to talk about humidity in a minute and what it needs to be at, but first we're going to talk about the substrate. What I would recommend is mixing sphagnum moss and coconut coir and having that be the substrate. That way it stays kind of damp, but it's not really soaking wet. Now, you want it to be able to dry out in between when you're spraying it and then when you respray it, because if you just have it be constantly wet, it could mold. So you kind of want to give it a chance to spray, keep it semi-humid, and then dry out a little bit and then spray it again. That's kind of what you do, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, for the substrate, coconut coir mixed with sphagnum moss works excellent. Now, if you're like me and you're a breeder, like I said, that's not always the best thing. And that, let me just do a quick little side note, that's only for adults. I would not do that for babies or juveniles personally. I only would do a loose substrate when they're adults. Now, some people say that once they get to be juveniles, they can handle it. I would just rather not risk impaction, honestly. So that's kind of why I don't do it. And I'm a breeder too, so like I said, it's easier for me to just use paper towels. Now, paper towels for a substrate work fine. You just might have to spray your tank twice a day instead of once a day at nighttime. Unfortunately, I have to go through and spray every single gecko I own 2 times a day. It's a lot of work. I feel like I'm constantly spraying and cleaning geckos. It's fun, I like it, but that's not for everybody. Now, most people don't have as many as I do. They usually just have 1 or 2 or maybe 3, I don't know. I would say for substrate, if you want to go the easy way, use paper towels, because it's a quick, easy cleanup. When you're cleaning their tank, you just wipe the walls down, replace the paper towel, clean any plants or anything like that that need to be cleaned, and then you're done. With the other stuff like loose substrates like the coconut coir and the sphagnum moss, it's a little bit more work, but it does look nicer. So if you're going for a nicer look, that might be for you. Again, I have a video on how to set up a Crested Gecko tank cheaply and one that's a little bit more expensive and a little bit nicer. That is, again, linked in the description, so just so you guys know, that's there. But that's not what this video is about, so we're gonna keep on moving on. And it's important to know, if you do add isopods and springtails to your coconut coir and sphagnum moss, you can make it bioactive. So that is another benefit to using the coconut coir and the sphagnum moss, is if you want to make it bioactive, a little bit less work, you could do that. So there is that. Next, we're going to talk about heating, lighting, and humidity. So basically for heat, as long as your Crested Gecko's tank stays between 72 and 78 during the day and doesn't dip below 69 or 70 at nighttime, you should be fine. You won't need any heat or anything like that. So it's my recommendation to put them in a room where the temperatures are pretty close to that. So I keep most of my Crested Geckos upstairs at my house, so basically it's a little bit warmer. So it's usually, I would say, around 75 to 76 degrees. That's ideally your sweet spot. I mean, if I could say at one perfect temperature, 74, 75 degrees will be perfect. Yeah, they can go a little bit higher, and it's not going to kill them, let's say, to be at 78, but you're kind of pushing it and you're towards the higher end of what they should be kept at. On the opposite end, if you're trying to grow your Crested Gecko and your temperature is too cold, they're not going to want to eat as much, and they're going to be super lazy, and they're not going to grow as fast. So I would not recommend keeping them cooler. It's better to keep them warmer. So I would say 72 to 78 during the day and no cooler than 69 to 70 at nighttime. I would shoot for more like 70 at nighttime. 69 is still kind of cool. So, I mean, I would shoot for 70. As far as humidity, like I was saying, you want to keep it high, but basically since they are nocturnal, they need higher humidity at nighttime. So basically what I do is, well, if I could, I would only spray 1 time a day. I have to spray twice, but if I was you guys and I might not have to necessarily spray twice a day, I would spray at nighttime. You want your humidity to be around 80% at nighttime and 60% during the day. But like I said, you are going to want it to dry out because you don't want mold. So if you're spraying it at nighttime and you're going upstairs or you're going wherever your Crested Gecko's tank is in the morning and you're noticing, oh wow, this is still really wet, just don't spray it. Let it dry out over the day, and then you can spray it again at nighttime. Now, if you're going in the morning and there's just a little bit of water, or your Crested Gecko, like you want to make sure they can get a drink, just mist a little bit. You don't have to soak the whole tank, just mist it a little bit. If it's dry, again, you can just remist it, and then it should be good until tonight, or that night. And then again, if at nighttime it's still wet from the morning, you obviously sprayed way too much if it's been 24 hours, but if it's only been like the 12 hours, and you're spraying every 12 hours, morning and night, then just spray a tiny bit and let it dry out. You can spray it in the morning. It's really not the big of a deal. You just want to make sure that they can drink at nighttime. You basically just want to make sure that they're going to get enough of an opportunity to get a drink at nighttime, because that's when they're most active, because they are nocturnal. And just like you're spraying at nighttime mostly, maybe during the day as well if you need to in the morning, but if you're spraying at nighttime, the best time to feed them, which we're going to be talking about diet soon, is at nighttime, because that's when they're going to be hunting for their food. Usually I'll feed all the geckos, spray all the geckos, and then I'll go downstairs. Sometimes I come back up, turn all the lights back on, and most of the geckos either finish their food already or they're currently eating their food. So as soon as the lights go off, they're ready to go find their food and eat their food because they love their food so much, which we'll talk about what that food is coming up shortly. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is lighting and UVB. So lighting, they just need 12-hour days and 12-hour nights. Now, if you have them in a room where there's a window and there's natural lighting, you don't even need to get a light, because as long as the temperature is good and they're having the natural day-night cycle from your window, you're going to be fine. One of the best things about Crested Geckos too is they don't need UVB. Yes, it could help them. There's research that shows that small amounts of UVB are beneficial to Crested Geckos, but it is not dire that they have it, and a lot of people keep them without having UVB and they're totally healthy and totally fine. Now, like I said, I am a Crested Gecko breeder and I don't have the potential to give all of my crested geckos UVB, so I personally don't. All of my crested geckos are fine and healthy. It would just be an added benefit. Since they are nocturnal, sometimes they do get small amounts of UVB, so that is why some people say that it is good or it could be beneficial for them. But I mean, I can't do it, and I choose not to. So B, I don't use it, so I'm not going to recommend anything because I don't use it. In your own tank, it would be different depending on what you have. So, you know, if I don't know something, I'm not going to recommend that to you guys. I'm going to have you guys do your own research because I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just going to tell you guys how it is. Now, let's say you're in a basement or you're in a spot in your house where your crested gecko doesn't have access to a natural light, like a window for, you know, natural day-night cycles. So what you can do is you can buy an LED light and just put it on top of the tank and plug it right into a timer, and then set the timer for every 12 hours. So every 12 hours it'll either shut on or shut off. So you got 12-hour day, 12-hour night, and there you go. Super easy and super simple. All right, guys, we're gonna have another gecko hop in because Chips was not having it. So this is Rapunzel. She's not flaring, so she's kind of hard to see. She kind of just looks like a white ball. But she is actually my oldest crested gecko, and she is 14, almost 15, I believe. So yeah, she's my oldest crested gecko, so she should just be chilling here. Hopefully she'll just relax and stay on my hand while we're talking. But the next thing we're gonna talk about is diet. Now, this is one of the simplest things for crested geckos. I mean, this is why a lot of people have crested geckos. Their diet is so cheap. It is easy. It's called Pangea. What I use is called Pangea Crested Gecko Mix. And basically, it's a powder that you mix with water until you get a ketchup consistency, and that's what you feed them. And you can store it in the fridge for a week at a time. Now, what I do is I basically put the powder into the container, I add water, I mix it up, and then I put it in the fridge. Now, every single day or every other day, whenever I'm feeding, depending on who I'm feeding, I can just go to the fridge and it'll last for a week in there, scoop some out, and it'll last for a week in there. Now, it's super easy. Instead of having to make it every single night, you make it for a week at a time. If you've got a lot of crested geckos, I know a lot of people use ketchup or mustard, like condiment, little squirt bottles you can get from Amazon. That works very well. You can get small ones if you only have a couple crested geckos. You know, things like that work very, very well. For food and water dishes, I literally just use water bottle caps and Gatorade caps or bigger caps like that to hold water in the food. Super easy. You can just throw them away when you're done, or you can, you know, pop out the old food and wash them. That works perfectly fine too. I end up reusing most of my water bottle caps until they get old enough to where they just need to be replaced, and then I'll replace them. Or cleaning them, you know, just they're kind of scratched up and they just got to be thrown away. Totally fine. But that is a little hack for food and water dishes for your crested gecko, especially if you only have one. It's easy to have 5 water bottle caps, and then, you know, you don't really need to worry about water bottle caps or dishes or anything like that. Super easy and simple. That's the best way to keep reptiles, I think. Nice and easy, nice and simple, and then you can't go wrong. Obviously, you can go and get fancy dishes, and nobody's hating on people that go and spend a little bit more money on fancy dishes or anything like that for the reptile or for their crested gecko. Honestly, like, good for you. I'm happy for you. I just have so many that's not feasible for me, nor is it really smart for me to go buy 30 plus or however many babies and geckos I have growing up, plus different containers that I have to wash every single day. Now, I've got hundreds of water bottle caps that I can clean, wash, and then they're just sitting there waiting for me to use as needed, and then I just kind of keep up on cleaning them and washing them as needed. So that's kind of how I do it. It's easy for me. If you want to be a little bit fancier and have a nicer tank or bioactive and make it with a bunch of live plants, great. I just can't do that because I'm breeding crested geckos, and it's just not easy to do that. Now, 2 more things I want to talk about for food on what not to do. So do not do this. Never feed your crested gecko baby food. It's not good. Don't ever do it. It's old school thinking. Geckos do not get the nutrients they need from it. Just don't do it. Pangea is even easier. Another thing that you should never feed is fruit. Now, this is debatable. I've heard that some people do it in small amounts and it's okay, but fruit can be very addicting to crested geckos because they eat that in the wild, and it's super high in sugar, so it's not really healthy for them. So make sure you are not feeding them fruit, or else they could be addicted to it, and it's really just not good for them because there's so much sugar in it. Another thing to their diet that you can give them 1 to 2 times a week is live bugs. Now, my go-to is dubia roaches. I occasionally will do crickets, but most of the time it's dubia roaches, and then I dust them with a calcium powder, and then I also dust them with a multivitamin for reptiles, all reptiles. It gives them a bunch of different vitamins. It basically is just boosting their immune system and making them healthy and making sure that they stay healthy, and that's just kind of how I do it. I give them both. I don't just give them calcium and I don't just give them vitamins. I literally give them both. Now, I'm only doing that, I would say, the dusting at once a week, once every other week, just because I don't want them to go, you know, have too much of an excess of different vitamins or calcium. Now with females, or if you're breeding, it's a little bit different with calcium, but that's a different video. I'm just talking about basic care for your crested gecko, not breeding. I would do it probably every other week, or you could just switch and do calcium one week and then the next week do multivitamin, then the next week do calcium and then multivitamin. That's what I would do. Now you can get the calcium with D3 or without D3. I would recommend switching between the two because you don't need them to have all that vitamin D because they are nocturnal, so you're only, you know, they only need a little bit, they don't need a ton. But that's my recommendation. Obviously do your own research on what you want to give, what supplements you want to give, but that's just my recommendation. So next we're going to talk about behavior, and as you can see, for the most part, I mean, they're chill. They just want to chill on you. When you first get them out, sometimes they can be a little bit hyper. They do not bite. I mean, the only time that they would really bite is one, if you're feeding them bugs. Sometimes some of them get crazy for bugs, and they might mistake your hand for food and they might bite. Or if, you know, I've got a male named Odie, and I mean, sometimes when he's thinking that you're a girl and he sees your hand and he thinks your hand is a girl, he's gonna try to, I don't know the right word to put on YouTube, try to make love to your hand. So he'll be kind of biting at your hand, or males sometimes will if it's breeding season, or if they smell a female. You know, they'll just do that sometimes. It does not hurt. It literally is just a pinch. It does not hurt at all. Don't worry about it. It's just a pinch. It might startle you. Be careful. I know some people, if they get bit, their natural reaction is to just fling. You don't want to do that because you don't want your crested gecko going, you know, wherever you fling. So make sure you don't do that. But I promise, they're very chill. Their bites don't hurt. They don't really bite to be mean. It's more of like a response to, like I said, a food response or a mating response. It's not to be mean or anything like that. Super chill. I mean, they're awesome to hold. This is why I recommend them for kids. They don't really move fast. Now, sometimes you'll get a spazzy gecko, but the way that you deal with that is by hand walking. Now, hand walking, you're literally basically just kind of tiring them out a little bit, but you're also getting them used to you at the same exact time. Now, literally, hand walking is just this. You put one hand in front of the other and they'll either jump to the next one like she just did, or she'll crawl to the next one. It's literally that simple. That's what hand walking is. That's how you can get their energy out and you can get them used to you. She's literally just crawling from hand to hand. Now, if you want to do it like this, you can spread your hand out and then she'll eventually, if you just touch her back a little, then she'll just jump. Now, obviously, she's a little bit of an older gecko, so she doesn't move as well as some of the younger ones do, but that's essentially all that it is. That's how you hand walk a gecko. That's also how you tame them. So if you have a crazy one or a spazzy one, you know, that's a good way to tame them right there, is hand walking. Now, if you do that a few times a week, 5-10 minutes a day, 3, 4, 5 times a week, eventually your gecko is gonna chill out. I mean, it's not gonna stay crazy forever, I promise you. And it doesn't really take that long to calm them down, to be honest with you. It's relatively easy. So if you do have a spazzy one, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's very simple. Especially as babies, people sometimes worry about it. Just don't even worry about it. You're fine. One more thing. When you're holding crested gecko, some of them will tend to poop on you. Now, it's not fun. It happens. It's common. Don't think that it's crazy, or you've got the one that's like, oh, I just have a crappy gecko. No pun intended there, but basically just, I mean, some of them do that. It usually means that they're not really comfortable or they're just excited or scared. That happens sometimes. The more you hold them, the less likely they are to do it, to be honest with you. So just don't really worry about it, but they will poop on you potentially. Just keep holding them, keep interacting with them. I promise you it'll get better and it probably will go away. I've had some that poop on me constantly, like Squishy. I would love to have Squishy in a video and hold Squishy the whole time. Squishy nonstop poops on me or pees on me. So, I mean, I'm still trying to work with him on that, but eventually he'll get there. Now we're going to talk about price and availability and where you should buy them from. So obviously, I'm biased. I love Dalmatians. Now, she isn't a Dalmatian, but I still love her too. But I love Dalmatians. Most of my videos and most of my breeding are on Dalmatians, whether that's super Dalmatians, regular Dalmatians, ink spots, you name it, that's what I love. Now, I would highly recommend, I'm not going to go through every single morph because there are literally so many, there's so many traits. Just, you would have to do your own research on that for what you specifically like. My only recommendation for you is buy from a local expo or a breeder that you can trust and that you know about. Speaking of that, we're going to talk a little bit about me and what my breeding plans are and kind of what's going on. So I'm debating starting to let some of my geckos go. Now, I have never made that public yet. I haven't made any of my geckos available to the public. So if that's something that interests you guys, please let me know in the comments, because I want to know kind of if you guys are even interested, or if you're not, I kind of want to just get a gauge on where everybody's at. I've basically been breeding for a few years and I've been keeping everything. I haven't gotten rid of, well, that's not true. I've sold a few, but I haven't really sold a lot. So if you guys are interested, I might make that a possibility for you guys if you're interested in any of my Dalmatian geckos. Now, most of them, I think pretty much all of them that I would be releasing would be from Sif and Odie. And as you guys know, those are the Tiger or Brindle, Super Dalmatians, and just regular Dalmatians. Some of them are ink spot. So I'm kind of debating whether or not I want to do that. But let me know in the comments, because I am interested to see how many of you guys would be interested in potentially purchasing some of Sif and Odie babies. Now, these geckos are crazy. They're gorgeous. I love them. I mean, oh, she's gonna jump somewhere. But yeah, I mean, just let me know if you'd be interested in that. Like I said, I recommend getting them from an expo, because you're actually going to be talking to the person more than likely that produced that gecko, so you know pretty much everything about that gecko, their personality, what the parents were like, what the parents looked like. Now, another thing I'm going to recommend is never buy them from a big chain store. They're generally not as healthy. There's sometimes potentially things wrong with them. I mean, I would just stick with going to a reptile show or ordering from somebody that you know, or like your favorite YouTuber that's a breeder. Not necessarily me. I'm not trying to say only buy from me. For sure, don't just buy from me. People are breeding geckos that are crazy. Definitely do your research, figure out what you like, and then figure out if they have that at your local show, or if anybody that you know has them and is breeding them, try to get one of their babies. Obviously, I'm biased because I have a ton of crested geckos and I'm a breeder, so I love crested geckos. So let me know in the comments, what kind of pets do you guys have? Do you guys have crested geckos? Are you looking into getting crested geckos? Do you have other pets? I have got other pets other than crested geckos. I've got other reptiles, I've got other pets, and we're gonna be adding more to the family soon. I'm not gonna tell you guys what it is. I hinted at potentially getting chickens in one of my shorts. That might change. I'm still debating whether or not it's gonna be chickens or something else. I don't really know yet, but that's going to be coming soon for sure. I'm going to make a decision. I'm getting that ready right now as we speak. But yeah, I love crested geckos. I think they're amazing. I hope you guys learned a lot from this care guide. If you're new to the channel, I've got a ton of videos on crested gecko care, reptile care, rescuing crested geckos, breeding crested gecko, how to set up tanks, how to get females ready for breeding, different unboxings, how to weigh them, a bunch of different videos. And I'm gonna be just adding more and more and more. All right, guys, well, I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something from it. If you did like the video, please give it a like. It'll help the channel grow a ton. I'm trying to grow right now, so please help the channel. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. If you're not new and you're a continual viewer, thank you guys. I could not do it without you. I'm pretty sure we're right around 11 to 1,200 subscribers. I cannot thank you guys enough. I'm so thankful for you. I could not do it without you. And I appreciate you guys so much. I love showing off my pets. I love showing off the different breeding projects that I have and the different just pets that I own, care guides. I'm gonna hopefully try to turn the channel into more of a vlog channel eventually. It's not gonna do that right away, but we're gonna slowly get into more and more things like that. We're also gonna keep doing the care guides, different tank setups. We're gonna be doing unboxing still, because there's still a few things that I wanna get, and I wanna keep adding, especially female Dalmatians, to the mix to keep getting some more babies. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like I said, please give it a like, share it with your friends. Definitely consider subscribing, because I would love to have you guys. If there's anything that you guys want to tell me in the comments, what animals you have, if you learned anything, if there's other things that I forgot to mention in this video, please do down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. And Rapunzel saying peace.